Before we start, may I remind you that Angel Heart radio programs should never replace your legal, medical, nor professional advice, nor your own sound judgment. Sit back, listen, enjoy, and choose to take the information as you see fit. Janet Hickox, welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you very much, Annette. Of course, I love being with you. I just love talking about astrology and human design and all kinds of fun stuff. So today, that's what we're going to do. Chat about what's going on in the stars.
Yes, and how it might affect what we're about to experience. It gives us a heads up, doesn't it?
It does. And I think probably you, like me, like most of the people in the world, are kind of tired of we're fatigued, let's call it, from all of the crazy things that have been happening in the world for, it seems like, gosh, a year now, maybe
Well, it
more,
is.
maybe a
Yeah.
few years even, if depending on what the situation is. And finally, here we are coming into the month of March. So the
Mhm.
last, ending of winter for us and the ending of summer for you all, that is bringing us into a new energy and
Mhm.
giving us really kind of the respite. I've been viewing it sort of as respite energy, kind of giving us a moment to recharge our batteries, if you will,
Right.
to not have all of that crazy, crazy, crazy going on, to
Mhm.
give us that time, to just really contemplate and maybe even integrate everything else that's gone on in our lives. So as we
Sure.
move into March, and really, I think it's even begun this week, even though we still have the full moon this week to get through,
Mhm.
which it's not a bad one. It's just actually, no, it's actually a pretty good one. It brings us sort of into this energy of Pisces and this energy of Neptune, and brings us the ability to start to sort of get into a more spiritual realm, to be
Mhm.
in a more relaxed state, to maybe be in a little more spiritual state where we can kind of embrace this idea of peace, unity, surrender, trust, which is not the energy that we've had, right? We've had this doing in reaction to a crazy world or to crazy things happening in the world. Now, I'm not going to say that March is going to be filled with nothing going on, because that's not true either, but it has a distinctly different flavor to it than the months previous.
Right.
Yeah.
Janet,
Mhm.
we have Erin in the chat room. And good morning, Erin. And may I remind anyone who might be watching this anywhere else but via Angel Heart Radio Facebook page, that if you would like to interact with us and make comments, perhaps even ask for a reading, please come over to Angel Heart Radio Facebook page, like Erin has done. Thank you for
Nice.
joining us, Erin. And Janet, I'd like to comment on what you've just said, because
Okay.
to me, the past year has been about giving us the opportunity to go within. Maybe for a lot that wasn't possible because of what they were all caught up in the drama that has been going on. And so maybe now this is another opportunity. It's like, how many times can we be sort of prodded to go within? Because to me, that's where peace first starts.
Yeah. How many more things must shock us before we realize that we're not going to find peace outside of us unless we can find it within ourselves first?
Mm-hmm.
But I
Mm.
think what March gives us that the other months have not.
Right.
it-
Mm-hmm.
Actually, there's been these stages of things that we've gone through. I mean, and sometimes you can't see those stages until it's hindsight, right? 2020
Sure.
hindsight. So we
Mm-hmm.
can look back at 2020, we can see a lot of destruction that went on, a lot of exposing of weaknesses in our
Mm-hmm.
foundations, in our institutions, in the way that we work with one another or don't work with one another,
Mm-hmm.
such as the case may be. So 2020 really brought us to a lot of things have to change. Like there's
Right.
these bell ringers everywhere we looked at things that have to change. And then as we got into December, and likely toward the winter solstice or your summer solstice,
Right.
things began to change, right? I could feel it. I think I even felt it at the beginning of December that there's something up, that
Mm-hmm.
energy is shifting. We're moving from that more destruction, kind of the element of polarization and upset, and we're moving into a time of possibilities. And so December, most of the end of December and all of January and February have been about how do we restructure now that we've been through all of that destruction. Now, what do we do to restructure?
Sure.
And that might be because of many different factors. It could be happening in our work life because maybe a job that we held is no longer there because of COVID, or
Mm-hmm.
people realize that we could get along with a leaner, trimmer staff. So I don't need to hire as many people. Thank you. Your job has been eliminated.
Mm,
Maybe it's been in our healthcare system where we've realized, oh my gosh, we can't handle a pandemic because we've got too many
mm,
holes in the system. Maybe it's been in your personal relationships because maybe you were thrust together more frequently during the lockdowns and not having jobs. Perhaps you are in each other's faces more, and your relationship had holes. And it
mhm,
could be in your health. It could, I mean, plenty of people out there have gotten COVID that didn't die from COVID, and maybe there's something in your health. So, all of us in some way have been personally affected by some of the bigger changes that have been happening in the outer world. As we get to as we got to this period of time we're in now, we were able to see maybe a light at the end of the tunnel. Maybe there was hope, and maybe we had just a feeling of optimism that things were going to get better,
mm,
and that caused us to maybe make new choices or do new decisions or reach out to in the world in new ways. Well, now we have a third energy that's coming in. So we've had a couple of months of that restructuring potential. Now that's not done. It's just going on hiatus a little bit for the month of March, because there's more to be done here on a spiritual level, and March brings us to that.
mhm,
So, what I really wanted to talk about today is what's happening through March with the planet
mhm,
Neptune, with the planet Venus, and in the sign of Pisces. That's where I really want to focus. I even wore blue today to, sort of that oceany emotional feel. Um, then we can talk a little bit about what's coming for the next season, our spring, your autumn,
yep,
and what can we expect then? Because we have another energetic bump coming.
mm,
So, high energy bump coming. So, better take advantage of the more restful period that we have now. So that's what I, was really wanting to show people what was happening with that.
mhm.
Am I allowed to share a screen, my screen?
You, yes. Isn't it interesting? I got the little touch about that today. The fact that
Ah, that I might want to
now,
do that.
how do I do?
Oops. Ah,
How do I let you do it? Advanced, maybe?
hold on. Let me see if it's going to let me do it now. Let me see if
All
I
right.
share. Nope, it's telling me host disabled participant screen sharing. So you
Okay.
probably have to click on participants.
Ah, yes, and you're up. Wait a minute. I had that up anyway.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then there's
Oh,
a tab there that says more. Does it say allow to
yes,
share
and
screen?
allow to do. Multi. Why don't we try that?
And it could also be under the share tab. You might have a little drop down
Oh,
here
you
with
know what?
share.
I think it might be there. Yes, one
Okay.
multi. There you go. You should be able to share now.
Ah, yes, indeed. Here we go.
Ah,
So
how
there you,
exciting.
yay. So you should be able to see my
Woo!
screen. And this is part of a presentation I did yesterday for our membership. So it's really about, I'm going to hit the, let's see if I do that. Oops, I got to go back now because I passed it. There we go. Now it should be the whole screen. Are you guys seeing the whole screen saying Neptune and Pisces take center stage?
I would hope that people are. Yes, go for it.
Okay. Are you seeing it?
I can see it
Okay,
quite
good.
easily.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So good. So the conversation that I wanted to have came about because as I was looking ahead at the month of March, I kept
Yep.
seeing this planet conjunct Neptune, this planet conjunct Neptune, this planet conjunct Neptune, and all those planets that we're going to conjunct Neptune are personal planets. Neptune is an outer planet. So in astrology, when we have inner planets, it means that they are things that affect us personally. So the inner planets are the sun, the moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars. So those are our inner planets. Once we get to Jupiter and to Saturn, they're transpersonal planets. They form sort of a bridge between the personal and the collective. The collective planets are Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, and anything else further out that we use, like Chiron and other bodies out there. So when we have personal planets that are conjuncting or squaring or opposing, coming into a relationship, let's say, with an outer planet, it brings those collective themes into us personally. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So if we look at what Neptune's themes are, we can't separate Neptune from Pisces because Neptune rules Pisces. Then we can get an idea of some of those energies that are being drawn into us individually via this connection that Neptune and Pisces have. So let's look at Pisces first. Pisces is a zodiac sign. It is the final sign of the zodiac, and it is ruled by two planets. The more traditional planet, its rulership is Jupiter, and in the more modern times, after, of course, Neptune was discovered, we started using Neptune as the ruler of Pisces. So you already see there's this relationship these two have come together with, Neptune and Pisces. Pisces energy is receptive, it's feminine, and it's mutable. That means that it's nebulous, right? It's sort of etherical. It has properties of it that make it hard to pin it down, right? It's just when you think you know what you need to know, something changes. That's what mutability is about. It is soulful, spiritual, and mystical. So we have this transit that's taking us into the more spiritual realm, into the realm of our inner being, not just our outer being. It is imaginative and creative energy. It is emotional, compassionate, and empathic. So we get a feeling about feelings also that are going to pop up for us during this month. In an astrology chart, the houses show us where the action is taking place. And each of the houses in the natural wheel has a ruler, a planet that rules it in a sign that it has an affinity for. And in Pisces, it rules the 12th house. So the 12th house is the house of the subconscious or the unconscious mind, the hidden, the inner kind of dynamic. It can rule things that are in secret, things like patterns that are ruling our unconsciousness, that are ruling our lives that we just don't see or connect with, right? It can be the place of our own self-undoing, self-sabotage. So we might be coming face to face with things in our lives that where we're not being our own best friend, where we're actually undermining ourselves by what we're doing or thinking or saying, or our beliefs. It could be any number of things. The sign of Pisces is deeply reflective and it's introspective. So it goes inward, not outward. Like Mars is a planet that pushes outward. Neptune is a planet. Pisces is a sign, they come inward. And this is the sign of poets and artists and musicians, intuitive counselors and guides and coaches and mentors and dancers and you name it, right? Those creative energies are very powerful here. And in the negative, because there's always, right, we can go to the highest expression, but we can also need to be aware of what that more negative expression can be. And it can be needy, codependent, addictive. Pisces is a sign that often has trouble with the real world, right? It's kind of lived up to an ideal. And when the real world comes calling, things kind of crash in.
Wow.
Then there's Neptune, the planet, right? Neptune, the planet, is a planet that rules spirituality, mysticism, our sixth senses, right? Our clairaudience, clairsentience, clairvoyance, olfactance, dreams, all of that kind of stuff. The spiritual realm. So Neptune and Pisces have an affinity right there, right? They're taking us again to that more spiritual side of things. Neptune rules things like theater, the fairy tales that we tell, ghost stories that we tell. That's Neptune
Mm-hmm.
realm. It rules confusion, illusion, delusion,
Mm.
the ideal versus the real. So, what we see here with that planet is that sometimes things aren't clear to us about what we're experiencing or what direction we're meant to take. So, things get foggy and misty, and we really want to keep rubbing our eyes even to clear the fog so we can see clearly. And
Right.
sometimes that delusion is so powerful that we escape, right? We need escape. We go into books, or we go into playing games, or we go into sex, or we go into gambling, or we go into drugs or alcohol.
Mm.
That helps
Mm-hmm.
us escape that feeling of I can't get clarity. Daydreaming is also a part of Neptune, and addictions as well as Piscean energy. So, all the things that you can think of that we can be addicted to while we're trying to escape the real and find our way back to the ideal, right?
Mm-hmm.
Neptune is the co ruler of Pisces. It is the planetary ruler of the 12th house, which is also the house of the unseen, the hidden, the secretive. It is the higher octave of Venus. So some planets like Venus are earth based, more, more in the personal realm. And then there are planets like Neptune that take the energy of love that Venus carries and brings it to the next level. So we have unconditional love, right? Or we have universal love here. We have
Mm-hmm.
cosmic consciousness potentially here in the Neptune, with Neptune as a planet. And because of that, then some of those higher functions of our higher self, like faith and trust and surrender to faith in a higher power or source or God, whatever you want to call it, takes center stage during this period of time. And March brings all those together for us because in the next slide here, hopefully, did you see the slide change?
Yes.
So Neptune is making many connections in March to our inner planets. So the sun, the source of our outer self, right? It's our personality, it's who we are, our extroverted self, right? The outer shell of who we are. And then Neptune representing the inner self. So we have the outer and the inner here. And during the month of March, as these two come into conjunction, and a conjunction just means that they're both sitting at the same degree of a sign. So they'll both be sitting at the same degree of Pisces, right? So we have
Mm-hmm.
Pisces, we have Neptune. So we two spirituals and a physical, right?
Wow.
So we have this opportunity to really go inward and to really get
Mm-hmm.
clear about who it is we are on the outer self, right? That's here. It increases our ability to be intuitive, to hear the inner voice, to be sensitive to not only the unseen realm, but to one another, right? To have empathy, to feel the feelings, feeling that being able to empathize with people who are still hurting, or with animals, the plight of animals on the planet, or the plight of children or immigrants, or any of those, marginalized things in our lives. We have this empathy that's increasing during this particular time period. Then we'll have Venus conjunct Neptune. Now we have the planet of love conjuncting the planet of higher love, and we bring it together to build a very powerful spiritual foundation for love in our relationships. Not just
Right.
love like I love you, Annette, I love you. No, it's not just that. It's that, you know what? There's something higher here that we have for one another, that it's a spiritual sort of love. It's universal love. It's
Mm-hmm.
unconditional, right? I'm not going to put conditions on you that says you have to be this, you have to be that, and then I'll love
Mm.
you. It's that I recognize that you have intrinsic worth and value and are worthy of love, no matter who you are, what you're doing, what you've done, what your experiences have been. So it's a very powerful call for more love
Mm.
in the world when those two conjunct. Not to be outdone, Mercury, the planet of the mind, is also going to come into a conjunction with Neptune during the month of March. Now, Mercury rules the mind, our thinking processes. Neptune, of course, I put the mind in outer space because Neptune has this ability to sort of take our mind and scatter our thoughts and cause us to make relationships, things that the logical mind does not necessarily see. So we're thinking and speaking, because Mercury also rules how we communicate, on spiritual topics, or we have scattered thinking because we can't quite pin down our thoughts, and we might find ourselves, moving through different topics, and oh yeah, I forgot I was talking about that over there. So we might need to be aware that if we have something important to say, we might want to have chart notes, or what are these things called, little post-it notes that are right in front of us, so that we can make sure that we get to say what we need to say, because our thinking is going to be kind of in little different directions, and we may feel a lack of focus. So it's important then for us to understand that for the month of March, these are very powerful energies coming together that are taking us into being more spiritual, being less judgmental about what's going on in the physical realm, to be more open, to bring more awareness, to listen more than we speak. So that's why I wanted to show this energy, or show those slides, because there's so many things here that are really painting what March is going to be looking like.
Well, thank you so much, because that was so clear, Janet. It was wonderful.
It's so clear because we don't have all that Neptune energy yet.
But now, what about Mercury? Because I hear, Mercury in retrograde a lot, and that's when technical things can go awry.
Yes, that's true. That's true. Mercury spends a lot of time in retrograde, 3 different times, sometimes 4 times a year. He moves into retrograde. He's just moved out of retrograde on Saturday, our Saturday, so your Sunday. He moved out of retrograde back into forward motion. And it takes some time yet, so things could still be a little wonky and mixed up and messed up, just for the short time being while he's gaining speed. Now, for the first half of March, so until March 14th, Mercury is still in the sign of Aquarius, where he retrograded. So he's still holding us a little bit to the themes that we've been working with in Aquarius: the restructuring, possibility thinking, looking at the optimistic or the high side of things. Then on March 15th, he moves into the sign of Pisces, and he starts then his progress through the sign that Neptune rules, and then eventually ends up conjuncting Neptune to be the third of the inner planets to make that conjunction. So our minds are going to shift anyway from the more can I say it, the more mundane to the more spiritual, as we move into the month of March as well. So that shift is for some people, it's going to be perfect, right? Some people live in that higher plane. They're very comfortable with spiritual thought. They're very comfortable with not knowing exactly what to do, when to do it, how to do it. But other people who are very logical thinking, they're the ones that likely are going to find some difficulty, because everything's coming undone, or it will seem like that there's no structure, there's no form, and things are not as easily understood. We can't even understand each other, but we have to kind of go into an inner self that can understand everything that's been happening, that will happen indeed.
Now, Janet, Erin has made a comment. Oh no, I already suffer with a lack of focus.
Erin, I don't know your chart, but I don't know what it is that creates that for you. Maybe you have Mercury in Pisces by birth, or your Mercury is in a close connection to the planet Neptune. So this won't be any different for you. It might be a little more pronounced. I guess that depends on the house that Mercury or Neptune is in. So that area of life might be affected more than usual. But it doesn't necessarily mean a bad thing. You might have, the spiritual realm is also the source of revelations and ahas and epiphanies, right? When we get out of our way, sometimes get out of our logical mind, we can get into a space where, new connections are made, where threads come together, and make sense, where in other times they didn't make sense. Now suddenly,
Mm.
oh yeah, that's what that means. Cosmic consciousness. What is that? Well, I don't know until I get to experience this sort of inner connection to the cosmos. So there's a lot of good potential there. I wouldn't be too worried about it. But if you have things that are very important to do, I would maybe do them earlier in the month of March before Mercury gets over into Pisces. Just depends. Just depends on what your chart looks like. And this energy can also be felt like as a respite, a time
Mhm.
for contemplation or some, spiritual work, and as a time for rejuvenation even. And sometimes that means we're going to take more baths, or we're going to, take more naps. We're going to do less work or whatever it is, because we're sort of in support of what our inner being needs. Then
Wow.
what happens as we move through toward the end of March, we begin a shift yet again, this time into more fiery energy as we get to the equinox, where we move into the sign of Aries, which is fire, and we start a whole new beginning. Right now, the Pisces energy is also taking us through an ending of sorts,
Mhm.
and through a completion of something, and preparing us for what comes next, which is something new. And as we move into April, now Mars begins to kick up a fuss again. And now we start to get, or not Mars, we get Uranus kicking up a fuss again as planets start to move through Taurus. The Sun, Venus, Mercury, they're all going to move across the planet Uranus, which is highly energized in a way to liberate us from something, which can mean change, right? So, and we're not always big and keen on change, but I would expect that the springtime brings us into some of that energy. Spring, fall, autumn is going to bring us into change yet again, that is preparing us for May's eclipses, and
Mhm.
June has an eclipse, and energy shifting to become more highly challenging. I'll use that word as we get into the end of June and the beginning of July. So
Mhm.
it's, you see, we've had this long-term stressor, then we had this optimism, then we have rest. Like everything comes to a standstill, even, or a stop, and then it begins in April to rev up, if you will, to take us into May, to take us then into June. And then if we look at what happens post mid-July, let's say, it takes us again into sort of a repeat of what began in December of this year, with this energy of possibilities and what more is possible and what comes next, and optimism. So
Mhm.
we're moving through these like breathing cycles of in and out, and time to give us or moments that are going to give us rejuvenation, time to rest again, and so on. It's just an interesting pattern, I think, all the way around.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. And Erin has made the comment, her birthday is the 17th of October.
Mm.
She had already planned that March was the month to work on her spiritual development.
How
Thumbs up.
intuitive of you, Erin. That's awesome. Perfect timing. Perfect timing. I mean, it's a
It is.
great time to go through some of those spiritual studies that we have, dusting off the gene keys, or dusting off a Course in Miracles, or whatever
Mhm.
spiritual texts are your favorites to read. Maybe it's poetry. Maybe it's a time to dive into Rumi, or, to look at some of the poets, or look at some of the masters of writing spiritual works. Maybe it's a time for divination. Could be a great time to start learning more about oracle cards, or astrology, or I Ching, or any of the kinds of things that we can do to divine our future,
Mm,
or divine what comes next. That's probably better.
sure. Explore all of the whatever.
Yeah, explore the inner
Interesting.
planes, right? Explore those things that maybe it's even better explained as a time to establish or reestablish or strengthen a spiritual foundation,
Mm-hmm.
right? To be able to go through the next round of high action and likely some dramas, you might need to have a spiritual foundation, right? That doesn't knock you off your center with the next, pandemic or something that happens. And there's always something happening on the planet. I mean, I swear we're
Oh,
drama queens and kings.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, Erin's saying good information. I need to pursue my spiritual side. And don't we all? Sometimes we tend to forget. Thing is, do we use our intuition? Are we aware that, yes, we have angelic support? Uh, We're, we're so fortunate here on planet Earth because we don't have to do it on our own.
So true. And you know what else I just thought of is that I left out completely the potential for healing during this period of time. I mean, that's a
Mhm.
word that I can put in through either Pisces or Neptune. And that's a possibility that, we have to go through some deep healing of wounds that were opened up over the past year for us in, different areas of our lives. So, and we would seem to say that the way to heal the wounds is through our spiritual connection and through love,
Yes.
right? That seems to be the big one.
That's exactly right.
Mhm.
And for love to overcome fear, for us to go within and, well, why am I responding this way? Am I coming from fear?
Yep.
Let's bring in that love. It's
And
universal. It's wonderful.
it is, it's wonderful and so needed, right? Because as we move into
Exactly.
April, actually the last week of March, and most of the month of April, I think all of the month of April, we come into a period of time where we're passing through the shadow field again. In late September and all of October, and I think the first week in November, the sun moves through all of the gates of fear on the spleen in the human design. When we get to March, end of March, all of April, and then probably that first week in May, the Earth moves through all of those same gates. And the Earth is often the planet that triggers the need to evolve, right? So something that we need to ground in within us that is going to help us to move to that next level. And
Mhm.
so during, March is a good time to really take a look at, where do I have fear? Where am I stuck? Where, what's stopping me from living my life the way I really in love and enjoy and doing what I want to do? And if it comes down to fear, likely it is, and likely you're going to have to go through that in the end of March, April, and early May, because the
Mhm.
earth is going to bring it up. And there are a lot of
Right.
places where fear is in human design, in the spleen in particular, which is where the earth will be traveling through. But that fear can often create anxiety or worry that affects other centers in our human design. So it might affect our heart. It might affect
Mhm.
our emotions. It can affect our minds. We can get into a field of confusion over what direction we need to move in, or who am I? Who am I? I don't know. I lost my center. So we need March.
Yeah, we do. We do.
we, we need March so that we can, have that spiritual foundation so that we can so easily, much easier to move through the next weeks of
Right.
fear on the planet.
I'd like to welcome Elisa. Thank you for joining us. It's
Hi, Elisa.
wonderful to think that to know that we're reaching people, and I always know, Janet, that the people who tune in, whenever they tune in, it's this information that they
They
need to
needed.
hear for
Yeah,
whatever reason.
exactly. I think the whole world needs to hear this energy right now,
Mm.
or hear these opportunities to bring peace, because peace isn't going to come without our involvement in it, right?
That's right.
If we want to have peace in the world, if we want to have loving relationships, then we have to be those things personally. We can't
Yes,
expect that it's just going to suddenly overnight change out there in the world without our having been involved in it. So we as individuals have the response ability to bring more love, bring more peace and healing and serenity and trust and surrender and love. Did I say love? Let's say love again into into my being, so that then I'm shining that outward to the world and affecting the
exactly.
field that way. So,
And it does start with us. You've been talking about us listening, going to within our own core.
mhm,
And so, love, we need to embrace ourselves and then embrace all around us. And the more that we can do that, and the more of us who can do it, of course, it's a ripple effect, isn't it? And
sure
so
is.
we just need to send out that love. But remember to start with ourselves. Are we being loving to ourselves, or are we beating ourselves up?
Well, that's a really good question too, Annette, because think about some of the things that we somehow in just offhanded comments say about ourselves. Like,
Yes.
I don't know, you look in the mirror and you go, "Oh my God, is that a
Mm,
wrinkle? Oh my God." Or you went out wearing that,
yeah.
or you went on air looking like that. Those are not loving and kind and generous things that we could be saying about ourselves, even if it's in jest, right? We can say it in
Mm,
jest. It's like, "Oh my." Um, but the thing is that it can almost point us to a pattern where we've been undermining our own confidence, undermining our own lovability, feeling like we aren't lovable based on what we look like, or, dropping something that you should have known better, or I don't know, any number of things. So it might be a really good time for us to sort of take a look at what are the words that we're using when we talk to
yes.
ourselves.
Mm,
What do we hear ourselves saying? You know, uh,
indeed.
are you beating yourself up, or are you, laugh with yourself about things that, I see,
Yes.
right? So,
Yes. If I find that, yes, I've dropped something, to be able, I must admit I use an expletive, but then hopefully I can laugh about it at the same
well, I'll tell you the reason why that came up, why I
time.
said that, is because I swear over the last few days, not only am I dropping things, I drop them multiple times. Like I'll pick up a pen, next thing I know, it's back on the floor. How did I do that? Janet, what are you doing? And then I'll go into the other room. And the other day I walked right into a rock that I use as a doorstop. I knew it was there. And I still kicked the rock, which did elicit
Oh,
a lot of expletives. And so it's all those things are opportunities for us to get more grounded, to be more in our bodies, to be more
yes.
loving and kind to ourselves, because the things that we generally say in response to that is, "You idiot,
Yeah,
you knew
exactly.
there, what are you," which of course, as funny as it sounds now, said in anger and upset, really has an effect on the body, right? The
Yeah.
waters of the body.
Mm-hmm.
We've been talking about Pisces. Well, in the body, Pisces rules the lymphatic system. So, all the lymph nodes that we have that are responsible for creating the white blood cells that attack toxins or bacteria or germs. So, when
Mm-hmm.
you have a healthy relationship with your lymph via a healthy relationship with Pisces and Neptune, then you are finding yourself in more health. But just
Mm.
like, what was that guy's name? Masamoro Emoto, or the one that did the experiments about blasting ugly energy at water and how then it was frozen into these grotesque sort of
Oh,
shapes.
Emoto,
Yeah,
Dr. Emoto.
Dr.
Mm.
Emoto. And then when love was given and shared, or happiness or joy, the words and the energy field made these spectacular looking beautiful snowflakes or snow, or
Yes.
crystals. And
Yes.
that, is huge, because your body is made up of about what, 75-80% water,
Mm-hmm.
which is taking in that field of energy and then turning that into an expression through your body cells. And is that meaning that you're, throwing anger at yourself, leading to, disease or a breakdown in the lymph system? Or are you throwing love at yourself, which can
Mm-hmm.
lead to then a strengthening of that lymphatic system?
Yes. Yes, I like Dr. Emoto's work, and I know that some people write words, positive words, or what they're wanting on their glass or drinking
Sure.
container.
Yeah.
Lots of different things we can do. And Erin's saying we all need to consciously participate in spreading peace, love, and kindness. Yes, and kindness to ourselves, kindness to others, kindness to Mother Earth.
Right.
No,
Right. Right. I
if
think.
I've moved, Janet, as you know, and I live right near a McDonald's. Well, the rubbish that I happen to collect as I go out for a daily walk, it's incredible. And yet, do we stop to think what we are doing when I'll finish with that, and we toss it?
Yeah. I think it speaks to a simplification of our lives that we need to undergo. Um, do we really need as much stuff as we have? Do we need to keep buying more and more and more? Do we, I think about like I just recently got a new phone.
Right.
And I was really irritated that I had to do that because I liked my other iPhone. I liked my iPhone 6, but suddenly it just wasn't working as good, or just it wouldn't, I was told it wasn't going to update anymore, right? They weren't updating that. And so it was slowing down. It was getting really annoying. So I was almost pushed to get a new phone, but there was really no real reason to do that, except that some company and some guy sitting at the top of some company decided that we need to drive more sales. So we need to get people to, buy new phones.
Good, interesting point. We have a lovely system here. Our old phones can go to the zoo and they recycle, and the money goes towards the gorillas, I believe, or the apes. So I think recycling is so important, isn't it? To be able to, okay, what am I able to do with this that I no
Yeah.
longer need?
Right. Rather than sending it to the landfill or the dump, right?
Yes.
Right. So I still have my iPhone 6. It's still sitting because I don't know yet what to do with it. I don't know that anybody's recycling those here, but that might be something worthy of looking at. But we're doing this all the time. How much food do we throw out in our grocery stores? When I walk in the grocery store, we have a population here of maybe, I don't know, 130,000 people, maybe more. But the grocery store looks like it's been outfitted for all 130,000 people, and not all of them are shopping at that grocery store. And then that makes me go, well, where's that food going? Because you can't keep tomatoes all that long. You can't keep avocados all that long. So where are you sending them all? Right? Maybe they reduce the price and then we get to buy them at a cheaper price. But even so, we're spoiling so much. There's so much of the bounty that is being wasted. And what could we
Incredible.
do? And then on the other hand, there's so many people that are hungry.
That's
So
right. There's plenty on this planet. It's how it's distributed.
yeah.
A quick hello to Londa,
Hi,
Janet,
Londa.
because she's popped in prior to a meeting. So how lovely. Thank you for taking the time, Londa, to say hello.
Lovely Londa. Lovely Londa.
Yeah.
So she lives in my neck of the woods. Not too far, right? Londa, we live maybe, I don't know, a mile and a half apart, 2 miles apart.
Oh, wow. Lucky you.
Yeah. You'd think so. You'd think we see each other all the time. But I can tell you, I don't think I've seen her in the new year. Maybe I
Right.
have. Maybe I have. I don't remember now. It's not that you're not important,
Well,
Londa. We just get
it's
busy.
interesting, isn't it? Busy lives. And a girlfriend messaged me this morning to say she's looking forward to coming over and having a swim in the swimming pool that is in my village, and she mentioned a date, and I went, whoa, I think it's going to have to be the week after. And so life becomes delightfully busy. I love it.
Mhm. Yeah, it does. But I think in that sometimes we can go overboard with the busy and we just keep going and going and going, never
Sure.
asking ourselves what end, right? What is this what are we hoping to achieve by all that we're doing? And that can sometimes cause us to slow down a bit and go, where's the value of being? I like to always say to people, you're a human being, not a human doing. So why do you keep doing, doing, doing? Sometimes it's an outside influence. People like Londa, who Londa happens to be a projector. So often people are projecting onto her the need to keep busy, keep doing, keep going. If you don't, you're lazy. And of course, that's not true. That's not true.
Mhm.
She's more in the spiritual realm of things, healing and that type of thing. Very Piscean pursuits, very Neptunian pursuits, but that's not any less valuable or any less busy than those people that have to go on the actual jobs that they're doing. So, or you know, being
I
busy,
do.
busy, busy.
I like the word delightfully busy
I like that too.
because, and I have a weekend ahead that is open at the moment. And it's simply delightful because some things will come in. However, it's also lovely to have a quiet weekend.
Space.
Beautiful.
Space to do what you want to.
Exactly.
Now, how irritated are you, Annette, that you can't take any cruises right now?
Ah, I know. They're advertising so
I
many. The
know.
thing is, though, they're so far in the future, I'm not prepared to say, well, yes, that's what I'm going to be doing. I think, oh, no,
I was
no.
looking the other day, I got an email from, I think it was Carnival Cruises, because I
Uh-huh.
was going to take a cruise just before, I was taking a cruise last April, but in, of course, January, something just told me to sort of back out of it, and I did. And so that I have this credit sitting there waiting for me to be able to take a cruise. Well, now I know why it was I backed out of it is because of COVID, which wasn't really in our reality yet. And so the other day they sent me an email that said, "Hey, you have this credit sitting here," but the soonest trip was in November. I'm like,
Right.
I don't know what I'm doing in May or April, much less planning for November. So I ended up just putting it on the back burner. I might go back to it. I don't know, but it seems like that's been our sort of reality is that, you know, planning for the future seems a little dicey because we don't know.
Absolutely. Yes. I wouldn't mind doing something later this year. I saw a cruise that I really liked. It was November.
Yeah.
However, I figured to come back to Australia, there's a good chance I would have to quarantine. And I'm used to coming back and then getting on with my life. And at that time of the year, there's too much happening to suddenly say, well, yeah, I'm happy to quarantine, apart from the cost, the extra cost of that,
Yeah.
time-wise and financially. So
The world is
Londa
definitely
saying
different.
she has credits too. Lucky you, Londa. And it will happen, won't it? That to me is when I listen to my inner guidance, and I know
Yeah.
where I should be going.
The other day I was ready to throw it all to the wind and just book that cruise or book that flight to, I don't know, someplace warm, someplace not raining, someplace
Yeah,
not snowing.
gorgeous.
That might mean like Florida or the Keys or something. And then I thought, oh, well, is that worth the risk right now? Right? I
Mm,
don't know because I haven't had the vaccine yet. I don't even know yet if I want to have a vaccine. So what does that mean, you know, in the grand scheme of things? So I'm like, okay, well, I'll just live vicariously online by going and seeing different beautiful places online. It was
uh,
wholly not satisfying, but at least for the moment, it got my mind off of traveling somewhere.
yes.
But I
We're very fortunate with what we can do online.
Yeah, absolutely. But
Yeah.
there's still that feeling I think people have of Not having freedom yet.
Sorry,
Not having freedom yet, where we can just go and do whatever we want. I mean, right now
mm,
we can go to restaurants again. Yay.
yay, I know, isn't that's really, really cool.
I mean, how is that when going to a restaurant becomes the highlight of your year? The highlight of 2021 so far is that I could go eat at Red Robin or any
I,
other restaurant.
I know, it's
Oh
now
my gosh.
Londa's lucky. And I noticed she's doing what a lot of people over here are doing. Has bought a trailer
Mm.
and to be able to travel with to Hall Harley to celebrate their 40th. I'm assuming that's 40th wedding anniversary.
Yes, indeed. Coming up. Coming up.
Well done. But so people are learning to travel sort of in their own countries rather than, we, especially from Australia, quite often it was cheaper to hop on a flight and go internationally than it was to explore our own country.
Oh.
And now even more so than they were, because we've got the baby boomer set, of course, but people have bought mobile homes. What do you call them? RVs?
RVs, recreational vehicles.
Right.
Or
We call them
trailers.
caravans or mobile homes. And they're becoming so incredibly mobile because they have everything. They're
Oh,
self-sufficient.
yeah. My brother just bought what do they call it? A fifth wheel, because you tow it on the back of a truck, right? It's got a
Yes.
harness or something, a boot that it connects to. And he was taking us on a tour, a look through, via camera. And
Yep.
I couldn't believe all the amenities this fifth wheel
Yes.
had that I don't even have in my house. Like, I was like, wow. The bathroom has a step up and into jetted tub. Wow.
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 That
Um,
is amazing.
it has a better sound system in it than my car or my house has. And it was just amazing in this smaller thing that you could get so many amenities, but it's that they're going to live in it. That's
Mm.
what their plan is. They bought some land and that's what they're going to live in.
Oh, good on them.
Yeah. So a lot of people are choosing that now, right? To live in mobile
Yes.
homes or RVs where they can just pick up and travel.
Erin's calling them grey nomads, which is what we call them here in Australia.
Gray
Because it's
nomads. Ah, that's fun.
because you're right, Janet, so many people over here they sell up and they invest in a mobile home and
Yep.
they simply move around. And if they have family, they can visit the families and stay. And I know people will go to the top end of Australia, so into, say, around Darwin, leave their caravans, and when they're able to, fly off to Bali for a short time or any of their homes up
Oh, and
there
then come back and get in their little caravan
and go
and
on.
go
It's
on to
like,
the.
all of these choices. However, at the moment, Londa, yes, we're very close to Bali, and it's a very, very popular destination for Australians, as is Thailand. However, they're all on the hold at the moment.
We can't even go to Canada.
Well,
I
see,
mean,
we've been stopped to going interstate. It's
oh,
incredible.
oh wow.
Mm.
I don't think they've done that to us yet, although like I looked into going to California in April to visit my brother and something about having to quarantine for 14 days, but I wasn't sure if that was me going into California or if that was
Right.
me coming back home. I wasn't clear, but either way I didn't want to take and have to quarantine for that much time,
Yeah.
just because I traveled.
Yeah.
And I don't
Well,
know.
and Londa's also pointed out that she has a friend from Sydney who came to be with parents in your area
Uh-huh.
last February
Oh,
and
yes.
hasn't returned to Sydney due to the quarantine. And and I've got couples who are split by distance because one's, say, in the UK and one's here in Australia, and the person in the UK can't get home.
Yeah.
The costs are incredible. And of course, because the quarantine, you're adding 3 or 4,000, I think, to the experience. So unbelievable.
Yes, but all of that is in a process of shifting. So that's the good news, right? That this virus can't go on forever.
No.
Now the virus itself may stay around, but won't be as super effective as it has been in getting us infected. It'll become, I think, more like the flu, right? Every year we expect a certain number of people are going to come down with the flu, and this might just be one of those flu kinds of things. And yet, for the time being, you've got to get a certain amount of people that are resistant to it. So either through vaccines or through having had it. I was talking to a gentleman today who had it, and he's counting his lucky stars that he lived through it, because it apparently in his life was very close to tragedy. So he got a really bad case of it, and he's in Texas. So at that time when Texas was really bad, what was that, maybe 6 months ago, after they didn't adhere to the first wisdom about locking down or keeping safe, he ended up with it and nearly died. So there's a lot of people out there like that who are intensely thankful that they've come through that experience. And yet now he's supposedly got sort of an immunity, but he's still sort of caught in this world that is very careful not to be exposed to it. So we're all working through this stuff.
We are, and my heart goes out to the people in Texas, because not only did they have a severe snowstorm, but my nephew is in Houston, and they were without power for 3 days with
no power, no water,
temperatures,
no water even. So
no heating and no hot water, and some of their pipes had frozen anyway. And they're conditions that we in the Western world are just not used to. I mean, that was amazing, right? To even.
But what it does, Annette, is it exposes a weakness, right? It exposes a hole in the system that now Texas has the opportunity to plug and say, okay, great. We're not immune to winter storms that take us down into, teens.
Right.
So maybe we need to prepare. And I think they had plenty of warning, and the electrical companies there chose not to do what they needed to do to insulate, and because they just didn't believe that it would get that bad.
Oh, really?
So it's like people who don't evacuate ahead of a hurricane, because the last time a hurricane came and they evacuated, it wasn't as bad as they said it was. And so now I'm going to ignore it. And then it becomes, a big problem. And that's kind of what happened here. These electrical companies knew days in advance that this was coming, and they could have done a lot more to insulate, but they just didn't believe it would make it all the way down to the Gulf Coast.
Wow.
Are you really going to tempt the weather gods, right?
Yes. Err on the side of caution.
Right. But again, it also helps us to see where those weaknesses are. And so it gives us an opportunity to fix them, to come up with a different solution, something innovative that prevents that from maybe happening in the future, or something worse.
Yes. So, have we got time for a quick question, Janet?
Sure. Absolutely.
I'm not sure. It's somebody from Angel Heart Radio. It might be Annette, might be Carol, might be to Beth. They'd be interested to know how astrology and the grey nomads experience might be connected. I'm not sure exactly, because the grey nomads, they've been around Australia for several years now. It's not just it just seems that there are more people heading to that because they're not able to go overseas or to go on cruises.
So That's an interesting question, but I want you guys to go back to our roots as human beings. We were
Right.
distinctly nomadic, right?
Interesting.
It's in our blood, it's in our DNA to move around when conditions change. So when summer would come, they'd be in the cooler climes, and in the winter they would go to the warmer climes. I mean, that migration is a part of our soul. That nomadic tradition is a part of our soul. So, in some ways, that may be being brought up to the surface by the discontent we might feel about having to stay stuck in a place, right, or to
Hmm.
stay home, and that can cause us to make some unwise, maybe choices or unsound choices. But in any event, it's a personal choice how you choose to move through it. But I see it sort of as a reasonable outcome of our DNA, our history of when things dry up in one place, we move on to the next,
Right.
right?
Mm.
And then we come back around. It's in our blood, it's in our DNA. Very fabric of who we are is nomadic.
Right. That's so true.
Yeah.
I'd like to thank you, Janet. What fun we've had this morning.
Yes,
Come
it's been
on,
fun.
March. March will be an interesting month.
Yeah, I think we get to it even by February 28th. Just post the full moon. Well, there's only 28 days in February anyway, so it's coming. It'll be here
Well,
before you know
enjoy
it.
the full moon. Enjoy every moment that
Yeah.
because yes, you're right. There's a little bit of February to go, so
Yeah.
let's enjoy every day. Let's spread the love and the kindness,
Right?
starting first of all with ourselves. I'd like to thank everybody who has managed to be with us wherever, whether it's being live this morning or whether you catch this as a podcast. We have delightful fun bringing these shows to you. Janet, I look forward to March. My goodness me, the year is marching on, isn't it?
It is. Can you even
Yeah.
believe it's March? Oh wow. Hmm. Yeah. I
Thank
look
you,
forward to that.
everybody. A nice reminder that Carol Ann and Annette will be here in about an hour and a half.
Woohoo.
Whatever you do with the rest of your day and what you do with your tomorrow, Janet, which is my today. I love that.
Yay. I know, it's like I time travel.
Yes, that's
I've
right.
I've traveled to the future, and I'll be traveling back to the past here in a few moments.
And it's really important, yes, that we stay in the now. So
That's right.
thank you, Janet,
Thank you
and
for having me.
pleasure.
We'll see you next
Thank
month.
you, everybody. I'll see you next week. See you next month, Janet.